Haven't you heard? A queen is on the rise. Wear a mini hat so she can open up your eyes. Join the convo, the podcast is lit. Cop a penny to the spice up your fit, yeah. She's a producer, you can vibe to her beats. She do the most, but she ain't come to do the least. Whether it's the convo or the music you want, find it all here at TiTiTalks.com. Come and stimulate your mind with TiTi Talks. Promise you'll never fall behind with TiTi Talks. The knowledge you're seeking you can find with TiTiTalks.com. So come on and get with TiTi Talks.
Peace, family. It's your girl TiTi from TiTi Talks. Just so glad to be back behind the mic again to bring some more bomb content. As per usual, I have been out in the streets traveling and working on this content. As y'all know, it's my goal to be a full-time content creator, producing podcasts and videos and hosting events and doing speaking engagements and guesting on radio and podcast shows and producing music and just doing all kind of cool shit like that. I'm gearing up for a big trip to Rwanda at the end of September. I'm super excited about that. Going to be doing some physical therapy educational work out there, and also we'll be able to connect with some content creators out there. So I look forward to that. Thank you to all of you who have donated and purchased merch to help me get there. There is still time. So if you haven't, just go to TiTiTalks.com. You can make a donation in the donation section. You can purchase some merch. Please continue to like and follow, subscribe, and share if you're enjoying my content. You can definitely meet me on the interwebs by going to TiTi Talks group and fan page on Facebook, at TiTi Talks on IG, at Miss, that's MSTT Talks on Twitter, TiTi Talks on YouTube, at MissTiTiTalks@gmail.com. You can also shoot me a text at 850-509-1194. That's my cell phone number. Hit me up on the low if you want to do business or talk about how I can host your event or be a guest on your show or do some beats and instrumentals for your content. I'm very accessible, so just hit me. So last episode 23, I played Mas in Antigua with Fuse. Yes, 4 beautiful sisters joined together and formed a Mas troupe called Fuse. Sister Akosua, Maisha, Thea, and Ife. They're bringing people together from across the diaspora to come fet in Antigua in unity and in love. And if you missed last episode, I need you to catch up, Mustard, okay? Here's a quick snippet about the amazing community work Fuse is doing in Antigua with the Nyabingi Theocracy Church School.
It is the only Rastafari-based school recognized by any government in the world. So this community is a community of people who believe in Rastafari as their faith. And during the 60s and 70s, when people were just beginning to start that faith, there was a lot of criticism and ostracization from the rest of the community for people who chose to be Rasta. So they wouldn't allow the children of Rasta families to actually go to school. They wouldn't pick them up in the buses and all those things. So they ended up starting to homeschool or teach their children themselves. So in 2011, they were actually recognized by the government of Antigua and Barbuda as a recognized primary school. So they have a primary school which is pre-K to what we would consider like 6th or 7th grade in the U.S. And then they go to a normal, country-ran school for their secondary school. But since that time, they have now gotten more support from the government. Fuse has interacted with them for the last 4 years, bringing in school supplies and posters, and we also bought some technology, tablets, and also their projector, and then also provided some internet service for them, and also an exchange with a homeschool community in DC. So we had them via Facebook Live watch classes from the Sankofa Homeschool initiative in the Washington, D.C. area.
So make sure you go to FuseAntigua.com, that's Fuse with a Z, and follow at Fuse Carnival on IG. This year's theme is Legends of Ankara, and I already know it's going to be hot. They are capping. You hear what I'm saying? Capping meaning they are cutting off at a certain amount of people. So make sure you're pre-registering so that you can make sure that you are in the number when we touch down in Antigua next year. All right. I have been producing a lot of visual content as of recent, so I have a ton of videos that I will be releasing in the upcoming weeks. Make sure you are following me on YouTube and all across the interwebs. Make sure that you have access to that content because you don't want to miss it. I promise. First, I was in Washington, D.C. shooting content with Makina Media. I was attending the Birthright concert. I went to an Asha class, and I did an interview with certified Asha instructor Sumalu with my homegirl Gian in tow. I interviewed my sister Thea, who owns a shop called Osley Pure, selling all kind of beautiful, delectable body goods for men and women. Have you smelling good, feeling good, using all kind of natural herbs and spices. You got to go down there and get some. And I also interviewed my brother and friend Malandela Zulu, who is a fabulous artist in the DC area. I own an official Zulu painting. He also has a clothing line. If you look on my original promo video, you will see I have on that fly ass Zulu soul jacket. You know I'm representing. And in this video and in this interview, he did a painting and he worked his magic. You get to see him work his magic. I can't wait to see the visuals on that. Shout out to Makina Media, Abel, Brooke, Tiffany. Y'all got some incredible footage from the other weekend. And man, y'all, I don't even know if y'all ready for it yet, man. I was interviewing vendors. I was, just having a good time out in the community in DC. DC has a special place in my heart, and I'm just so glad that Makina Media had the opportunity to show that. Then I shot another video last weekend. I was in Tampa, Florida with my good friend, my college friend from FAMU, Jamaris Glenn. He and two other sisters opened a restaurant in Tampa called 7th and Grove, okay? Right in the heart of Ybor City. It's a beautiful space. I had a good time talking about entrepreneurship and coming out of the HBCU experience and building a business with friends and building community, and it was just wonderful. I'm so excited about it. Shout out to Philip Scott from Delvemore Studios. He's also a rattler. I've just been so blessed to be able to work with so many entrepreneurs and artists. So just stay tuned, man. The video coming for that. I'm thinking because it's really a rattler project. I'm a rattler out of FAMU. Brother Jamaris, who opened the restaurant, he's from FAMU. The brother that shot the video, Brother Philip, he's from FAMU. So I'm thinking I want to drop that video homecoming weekend, which is in the first week of October. So I'm thinking I'm going to drop it then just because it's fitting. Rattlers do it better. If you want me to continue to be able to drop content like this, make sure you are purchasing merch, donating, becoming a patron on Patreon. I accept any and all assistance in all of this because TiTi Talks it's a hard project to keep going, but it's a project that I love. And I appreciate everybody's support. So thank you so much for the past support that you all are giving me. And thank you for future support that you're going to give me. I appreciate it like more than you could even understand. I really do. So we're moving along to episode 24. All right. On today's episode, I am so overjoyed to share with you all a good friend and TiTi Talks frequent flyer, Dr. Nzinga Metzger. Y'all first met her on episode 7, where we had an impromptu show about Haiti and other, quote, shithole countries. So I'm gonna give you a little clip to refresh your memory. Because if you don't know who Nzinga Metzger is, damn it, you about to find out today. Okay?
You can't look at Haiti and say shithole country. Like that process happened in a vacuum by itself with no input into creating that situation from the West. Slavery in Haiti was some of the most difficult, most taxing on the human body, most harsh, most violent, most vicious slavery that was perpetrated in the Americas. It was known for being extremely inhumane. Yes. Right. As it was in Brazil and also Guadeloupe and some other places. And the life expectancy for Africans in Haiti was so short that part of the reason why we see all of these cultural manifestations that have this very deep feeling of Africa in them is because the life expectancy was so short that Haiti had to continually import Africans into the country to maintain the level of sugar production.
Now that y'all are familiar with who she is, I need y'all to hear when she came back on my show on episode 14 for the panel show I did right after the midterm elections. We were talking about young black people in politics. And so here's a clip of Nzinga from that episode.
Okay, what am I supposed to do after I vote? Well, let's just be really honest for a second here. Most of the people who ask that question ain't doing shit no way.
First of all,
let's just talk about that. So my thing is, if you're not doing anything, if you're not working in the community, if you're not organizing, if you're not knocking on doors, if you're not volunteering, if you're not, doing something for the community, the least expensive, least in terms of time investment, least in terms of energy investment, least in terms of really thinking, because you can go to your party and get a ballot, is just vote. And then you can go back to doing the nothing you was doing before you was asking that question.
Exactly.
Because that's really where it is. There's really a very small portion of the population who is out there busting their asses for social change.
Yes.
And most of these people asking this question with this level of indignance are not the ones who are out there doing the work. So all we're saying is, if you ain't doing nothing, this is one more, 0.3 nanometer of nothing that you can go do to help the people who are out there who got themselves on the line.
Hello. Right. So now y'all are understanding why I needed to have her back, right? She's one of my favorite people. I love her incisiveness. I love her intelligence. She is the type of person that I love to have on my show. That's why I keep inviting her. And for some reason, she keeps graciously accepting. Will come here, leave my microphone in flames. I'm just going to have to start charging her, man, because my mic stopped working when she come on here. But I'm excited for y'all to hear this show. She has two beautiful organizations, Dunia Fore and the Asha Academy. And we're going to talk about her personal work and a little bit just about her life, her vision, and what she's doing to help African people across the water. All right. So make sure you stay tuned for this one. Enjoy. Hey fam, it's your girl TiTi from TiTi Talks. I'm so super excited about this guest. She's a frequent flyer on TiTi Talks. Y'all just heard some clips from her prior appearances on TiTi Talks, just to get you up to speed about who this sister is and the fire that she brings. And I've had her on before for her historical and socio-political views, but this episode we're going to talk about how she puts her expertise into practice and how she makes meaningful change with her organizations, Dunia Fore and the Asha Academy. Dr. Nzinga Metzger, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me again. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's such a great privilege to be here and to talk about my work.
Yes, I'm excited to have you here. As y'all know, she tends to leave the microphone in flames when she comes on the show. But I think we're going to be a little bit more subdued today because we're not talking about white supremacy and racism and, political foolishness.
Right.
But, I'm really excited because she has an organization that I really love supporting. I wish I could just support more. One day I'm going to be a millionaire. I just feel it. And so they just, they're going to be one of the organizations that I just completely all out support because I love the vision. So tell the people a little bit about who you are for the folks out there who are not familiar with you. Just a little bit about your background, who you are, what you do.
My name is Nzinga Metzger, and I come from an African and African American background. My parents are, I don't want to say they're children of the 60s because they were young adults during the 60s, but they were in their 20s, in the early 60s during the Black Power era, the Black cultural arts movement, the civil rights era. They were, coming of age. My mother definitely was here in the United States. My father came here in 1968. So I was basically raised in a Pan-Africanist household. And my parents' union is reflective of that because my mother is African American and my father is Susu and Creole. And I choose those words intentionally because of the colonial lines or whatever, because there are Susu people in Sierra Leone as well as in Guinea. So our family was bifurcated by the division of Guinea and Sierra Leone. And so just growing up in that environment, both of my parents always stressed, you know, when my brothers and I would come of age and we would grow up, that we were always supposed to give back in some way, and to always remember, you know, that we were only a few generations off the plantation.
Hello?
You know, or a few generations, or actually one generation out of the house cleaning era. You know what I'm saying? And then even on my father's side, having one branch of his family be recaptives a few generations off of the slave ships. So there was always this sense that we were obligated to give back in some form.
Absolutely.
Now, the form that we were exposed to growing up was always just basically turning back and supporting the family. Whether that meant sponsoring someone's education back home, you know, sending money to make sure that everybody who lived in the family house has rice, you know, basic, you know, amenities to live off of, or what have you. And then obviously on my mom's side, helping my grandparents and things of that nature. But as I grew older, I just had an expanded vision of what turning back to help, you know, would look like. And I had come to a point in my life in 2015 where I had hit like all of my major hallmarks. All the things that I had said that I wanted to do prior to 2015, I had achieved them by 2015. And then I was like, for those of you who know me, I was in a dramatic space.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, my life is just, I don't know, is this all it is? I'm going to work and I come home and I go to work and I come, and I was just like, you know, there's got to be more to life than just working and paying bills and coming home. And so, you know, I just went into, for some black folks would call it a prayer closet.
Hello?
You know, and I took my spring break that year and I just isolated myself in my guest bedroom and I fasted for like 10, 12 days. And I just asked Spirit to tell me what to do next. And then I just started getting these downloads about this organization. And then I approached our mutual friend, Bruce, because he knows about filling out forms, which I'm allergic to. I'm allergic to.
Yeah, I don't like doing that stuff.
I can't do all of that stuff. And so
Shout out to Dr. Bruce Strobel.
Yeah, shout out to Dr. Bruce Strobel. And I asked him to fill out my 501c3 papers and, you know, get my application together. He did that for me and I got my status. And so from that point, I started developing the programming that I wanted to do. I named the organization Dunia Fore because our family language, one of our languages is Susu, and Dunia Fore basically means black world in Susu.
Beautiful.
And I just started developing the programming from there. My vision was to leverage the talent and the education of my family members to go home in the various countries where we have family members, obviously, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea, Mali, Nigeria, and create programming that would help uplift communities there. So sharing our skills, etc. And then eventually what it did is just kind of branched out into other areas. And that's how I kind of came up with the idea of doing Asha Academy.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So I need y'all to understand what the sister did. Well, let me rewind real quick because you said something very important and I've been thinking a lot about this and just haven't found the right words to articulate it when you were talking about growing up with parenting from an African American perspective and from a continental African perspective. And we always hear about all of the shit that goes wrong from the ADOS crowd, right? We always hear about all of the negative things that happen. But I can, off the top of my head, count at least a dozen people that I know personally who have an African American parent and a continental African parent. And in all of those instances, it's always been a very good, not perfect, but outcome. It's always been very favorable for the children as far as perspective and worldview. And I just see a lot of really wonderful things happening with, the merging or the re-merging really of those two perspectives. So I really, before we even talk about the organization, I just want to say that these organizations, that we're about to talk about, they are really the birth and the brainchild of the beautiful things that happen when African American and continental African culture, just get over it, get over the bullshit, heal through it, of course, but also be open to all of the positivity that can come from it. Yeah. So I really appreciate that. And before we move on, talk a little bit about like what that was like coming up, with those two perspectives.
I cherish my upbringing because I don't know if it's just that my parents are two very unique people, or I don't know what the formula is. Right. What I do know is that they were both very acutely aware of their blackness. My grandfather on my mother's side, he was a World War II veteran. And obviously he was from the South, from South Georgia. We don't know if it was Macon or Savannah, whatever the story used to change. But he had his own experience with white supremacy. And so he raised his children with a very acute awareness of that. My father is coming out of post-colonial West Africa. So he's coming out of the era of the Sekou Touré's and the Kwame Nkrumahs and the Patrice Lumumbas, so he was getting that rhetoric at home. And actually, my father, when he came to this country, he became a Black Panther. So they were both very conscious and aware of themselves as Black people in the world. Right. And so they didn't have this, whatever this created static is that we hear from the ADOS crowd or whatever. They didn't have that. They were coming together as two Black people. Now, that's not to say that there weren't cultural issues. Because there were. But and I also think that because my mother's family was also very deeply rooted in the South, there weren't a lot of familial contradictions. So the value for large families, family interaction and connection, those things were the same. So my grandparents coming from South Carolina and my father coming from West Africa, those kind of values had not completely deteriorated here in the United States. At the time that my mother was growing up. So those things definitely kind of smoothed out some of the things that I think people nowadays may be facing.
Absolutely.
But for example, because my father is an African, we spent many summers with my grandparents. That was completely normal, that you would just send your kids and go we spent 6 to 8 weeks a year with my mother's people. Because that was normal. That's what families do, And then my mother's sisters would come and stay with us whenever my mother had children, because there were 4 of us. So they would come, or my father's uncles would come. People were constantly coming and going from our home, from both sides of the family. We spent a lot of time together, and our families actually became quite integrated to the point where there are members of my father's family who came to my mother's sister's funeral because my aunt has been around and integrated into our family for the past 48 years. So they really kind of blended. And I don't want to paint this picture like everything was perfect, because it wasn't. There are certain things that I'm sure my parents struggle with, but as their child, I'm not privy to all of those things.
Right, absolutely.
But the value for family was definitely something that was shared. And I think even though my grandfather, because my mother told me my grandfather had some commentary about my dad being African before she married him, like, I don't want you to marry no African, whatever. But, once he saw the way that my father carried himself and conducted himself, they ended up having a decent relationship. And before my grandfather died, he and my father had a conversation. Now, this is interesting. My grandfather and my father had a conversation about what was going to happen with my grandmother when she died. He didn't have that conversation with his own sons. He had that conversation with my father. And he asked that he just made sure that my grandmother was taken care of after he died. And that's what my father did. Because those are the kinds of values that he comes out of. And my grandfather knew that those were the kinds of values that he came out of. And so that he knew that he could communicate that to him and it would be treated with some level of gravity. And that if my father said he would do it, he was going to do it. That's right.
It would be done. It would be done. And thank you for sharing that. And I was intentionally asking that question because I wanted people to really have a good understanding of the perspective that these organizations were birthed from. You know, what came
what they
came
are
before.
rooted in and what they come out of. Absolutely.
Exactly. So so you were fasting and praying.
Child, and crying.
And crying. That's when the magic happens.
Yes, definitely. My dream has always been to like basically create my space back home. I'm sure most people are aware that there are many governments in West Africa that are severely wanting in terms of organization and, you know, they haven't weathered the post-colonial era very well.
Right.
So I've never really dreamed so much of being in politics, but I have always been trying to figure out like, how am I going to fit back home, you know? And I perceive of Sierra Leone as back home. And so it wasn't until I started really digging mentally into this idea of having an organization that I realized I was like, oh, this is how I can do it. You know, this is how I can create a space for myself where I can be of service and I can also have something to do and possibly generate a living for myself back home, you know, while I'm being of service. And then also not just in Africa, but all throughout the diaspora, which is why I named it Black World. You know, it's not just about Africa. It's about, for me, really, it's about the entire Atlantica, Afro-Atlantica, you know. I mean, I don't know, maybe one day I'll end up in Black Iraq or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But for now, my focus is Afro-Atlantica, you know. So, you know, African America as in the United States, the Caribbean, South Central America, and then obviously Africa.
And so I know you've done several things under the umbrella of Dunia Fure. Like, what are some of the things outside of Asha that you've been doing?
Okay. Yeah, I am a arts and culture person. I really love African African performing arts. So music and dance, I really love. And I love them not just because they're aesthetically beautiful to look at, but because I feel like they are ways of encoding our story.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you look at our art forms, whether they're performing or plastic arts, if you look at our art forms with a discerning eye, you can really see the greatness of the things that we have created. And I'm not just talking about kings and queens and, you know, that whole shebang and spiel. I'm talking about at an intricate level what our societies were made of when you look with a discerning eye at our art forms.
Right.
So these are the kinds of things that I'm intrigued by. So one of the things that I did at FAMU, for example, was I brought Amadou Kouyaté and Weedy Brima to lecture, and then also do a chamber concert in Tallahassee. I had Nettie Torres, who's an Afro-Cuban dancer, come and perform here as well. What else have I done? Oh, I did what did I do? Oh, the Simple Civics class. So we did a class to teach people how government functions at both the local level and the federal level, to help people see that there's a way that you can get involved to make a difference in your community as far as politics are concerned. We're trying to kind of combat this dissociation and this kind of anomie that's crept in the Black community in terms
apathy
of apathy. Exactly. You know, in terms of not getting involved with politics. And then here, the most recent thing that I created was the Understanding Racism course, which is a 13-week course that basically outlines and provides context for institutional racism. And the reason why I wanted to do that was because I feel like there are a lot of people talking about racism and they don't really know what racism is. And I also feel like there aren't many spaces for Black people to have informed conversation about racism.
Right.
I think there are oftentimes a lot of people just throwing around their ideas and throwing around conjectures, and not really having the people who study these things explain things in ways that are easily digestible and understandable. So we did that, and that was 13 weeks. Coming up, we have Amadou coming again to North Carolina, so he's going to perform. And one of the reasons why I chose Amadou is because the Susu people were once a part of the Manding Empire, and also because my brother absolutely loves kora music. So he wanted to have an event that kind of incorporated kora music, and I was like, oh, well, Amadou's right up there. Let me see if he'd be interested. So he's going to perform and probably do a little bit of explanation about what kora music is and how it is really the classical music of the Manding Empire. This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about when I say, if you listen and look with a discerning eye, you can really see how complex African societies are.
Yeah.
You really could use the kora as a lens through which to study and understand the Manding Empire and Manding culture. So, you know, outside of just the music, first of all, it's a 14-string lute.
First of all, let's
you
start
know what I'm
there.
saying? You're playing it with two hands. And not only that, the people who play them make them.
Yeah.
So if we just were to look at the kora in and of itself and contextualize, okay, what is this telling me? What is this instrument telling me about Manding culture? Obviously, there has to be some form of apprenticeship, because ain't nobody waking up in the morning with this brilliant idea of how to make this 14-string lute. Somebody is teaching. There has to be some form of organized teaching that's happening outside of, you know, just the playing. So somebody is making them, and then somebody is teaching people how to play them, and there's got to be some level of organization to that. And then what is the repertoire? Who's handing down the repertoire?
Right.
What is the technique? You know, there's all these things that are obviously in place that have created the classical music of these type of people. And you can't have that type of structure if we just a bunch of Negroes swinging from vines. That right there tells you a whole lot about that society, you know? So that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have Amadou come and play.
What's the date on that?
The date is August 3rd, I believe. That's a Saturday.
August 3rd.
Yeah, that's this coming Saturday, and it's going to be in the evening in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I'll be posting the invitation. People can attend. Obviously, if they want to attend, the tickets are $30, and all of the proceeds go directly to our programming. Or if they can't attend, they're still free to send a donation. Oh, another thing that we're doing is we're sponsoring a FAMU graduate on her first birthright trip.
Nice.
So there's a sister organization that I work with called Grow House Brooklyn. And we work together to do birthright trips. Last year, we did a trip to Cuba with youth.
Right.
And then this year, she is taking a group to Ghana. And so I'm sponsoring a FAMU graduate to go on the trip.
That's beautiful. I love that. That's beautiful, 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 y'all. And definitely, if you're not familiar with kora music, I need you to get familiar with kora music. That's kora music with a K. It is absolutely elegant.
It's ethereal.
Ethereal. If you have no reference for it, when you hear it, you're immediately going to be just transfixed on just the beauty and the elegance of the sound. And then when you start to learn the history of it, and then when you start to understand just the guilds, the guild culture,
exactly.
You know, it's an organization of historians and artistry and craftsmanship and musicianship and just excellence. It's
Black
really,
excellence.
It is literally Black excellence. And so when you're around here playing Mozart and stuff for your babies, that's cool.
Yeah.
I like Mozart.
Right.
Mozart's fabulous. Throw some kora music in there.
Throw some Tumani Jabate in there.
Hello.
You know? Throw some kuyates in there.
Yes.
Because people have this concept, when we say classical music, the first thing that pops to people's minds is those European composers and musicians. Every society on the planet has their own classical music.
Yes, they do.
Europeans do not have a monopoly on classical music.
No, they do not.
And so this is the classical music of the Mending Empire. And it's not just percussion. People think that African music is strictly percussion. There are so many instruments.
So many.
Countless. Countless instruments that are played.
I hear and learn a new one every other month.
Right.
I swear I do.
Right. All over the continent.
Yeah.
So many different string instruments, woodwind instruments, percussive instruments, the balafone and all of those related instruments, the marimba, the marimbula, like all of these related instruments. There's tons of instruments. A lot of people also don't know that the kora is a part of the family of instruments that the banjo is derived from. So there's an instrument from Gambia called the akonting, and it's what the banjo is based on. But these are all West African string instruments that the kora is a part of that family.
Put that in your cup and sip it now.
Hot tea.
But this is important, and this is why I'm really excited about hearing about and being somebody who has supported Asha Academy, because you're giving this type of information to people when they're younger.
Right.
You know?
Right.
They're not getting this information. And there's nothing wrong with getting this information at 20, 30, 40, 50 years old. There's never a bad time to get this type of information. But it's wonderful just to be able to put this in their minds early.
Exactly.
Because there's so much in regards to self-worth and self-respect that gets etched away over time if they don't have the proper cultural protective barriers up. And education and information is one of the major things that can help combat a lot is. So talk a little bit about
Asha.
Yes.
Okay, so Asha is Asha Academy is a summer school program that I developed for traditionalist children in Oshogbo. They're the first location that we've had Asha. Asha means culture is life. I'm a cultural anthropologist, so that's the lens that I view the world through. I like to think about culture as being human beings' operating system. So, you know, your culture is your operating system, and then as you go through life, those experiences kind of lock into your operating system and tell those apps, if you will, how to work, what that operating system is going to generate. And so the idea was to create this summer school program that's like an enrichment. I don't know if people do summer enrichment anymore, but we used to have summer enrichment programs.
And I don't remember anything in recent time where that's been happening.
So I wanted to create a summer enrichment program for these traditionalist kids. And there were a couple reasons why. Oh, what is traditionalist?
I was just about to say, because, you know, I have people listening from all over who may or may not be familiar with the terms. For one, Oshogbo is in Nigeria. Right. It's in southwest Nigeria in Osun State. Right. And talk a little bit about traditionalist children.
Right. So the traditionalist children are going to be the children who practice their traditional spiritual system. They are neither Muslim nor Christian. They are traditional. They practice their tradition of their ethnic group, which in this case would be Yoruba. Most of them, if they are from Oshogbo, I want to say they would be Oyo, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Oyo Yoruba. And so traditionalism all over Africa really is facing challenges. We have people who have been inculcated with colonialism, whether that colonialism is Western European colonialism or Arabic colonialism, that has taught Africans over the last several centuries that everything that we do is backwards, savage, uncivilized, evil, you know, all of these negative adjectives. And so part of what happens as a result of that is that Christians come to Africa and they establish their missionaries or their missions. Muslims come to Africa from Saudi or wherever they come, and they establish their missions. They establish their schools. The traditionalist children don't get anything. And one of the reasons why I chose Oshogbo is because every year there's this huge festival in Oshogbo, the annual Oshun Festival, which commemorates the establishment of it commemorates the establishment of Oshogbo as a favored city of Oshun. So it talks about the story of Oshun and this hunter named Olutimane and how they came to agree on where to establish Oshogbo. And that's what the annual festival commemorates. This festival draws in literally probably millions of dollars every
Yeah,
year.
it does.
People from all over the world attend this festival. And the thing is, there would be no annual festival if it weren't for the traditionalists of Oshogbo.
It sure wouldn't.
They are the ones who maintain the Oshun shrines and the shrines of all the other Orishas that are there for people to experience when they come to the Oshun festival or when they come to Oshogbo in general, just
in general
experience the Oshun
and
River.
even Ile-Ife.
Right, or the Grove or what have you.
Yeah.
So my thing was, what would it mean to have a summer enrichment program for these children, the children of the people who are basically maintaining this tradition that attracts all of this tourism? What would it mean for these children to have an enrichment program that basically taught them pride in their identity as traditionalists, taught them pride in their blackness and their Africanness, taught them about their connection to other people of African descent in the diaspora, and then also help them to build up their academic foundation? What would be the long-term effects of, teaching? At the time, I thought I was going to have 60 kids.
Right.
So what would be the effect of just kind of stewarding these children every summer with this kind of program that kind of just edifies them in these ways? And I was like, this could work, So that's when I started trying to raise money back in 2016 for our first year, which was 2017. And when I got to Oshogbo, I had two people, Niyi Adeniyi Elebuiban and Muideen Shina Elebuiban. They were really kind of like my community liaisons. And they put out a call to the community and let people know what we were going to do. Called the parents to Baba Ifayemi's compound, let people know, this is what we're trying to do, whatever. And on the first day, we had 100 children to register.
Right.
I was like, oh my God, I'm not ready for this.
Right.
And they were like, and we were looking for children from 6 to 9. Child, they brought children from 3 to 14. I was like, okay.
All the cheering.
All the cheering. They brought all the cheering. And we made it work. We figured out, what to do with them. The program, they get their T-shirts, they get folders every year, and they also get lunch every day for a full month. And so that was our first year. Our second year, we had 125, even though we reduced the age. So last year, we went from 8 to 18, and we still had 125 kids. And still the same setup. They get their folders, they get their free T-shirts, and they get lunch every day. And what made me cry on the first day was these 14-year-olds that showed up in their shirts from last year. It's still it still deeply affects me, because I'm like, I can't believe that they thought so much of the experience that, first of all, they saved their shirts.
Yeah.
They saved their shirts, and they showed up on the first day I got my shirt. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Where do you sit? Where I gotta sit? What do I need to do? I'm ready, And that was just that was amazing.
There are a few things that fill your soul up more than wanting to provide something for a person or people or community, and they receive it well and give it right back.
Yes, yes. I really, really enjoy teaching the 14 to 18-year-olds. They are zooming. They are so ready. Any little piece of information I drop out there, they just suck it up, and they're processing so fast that I'm not struggling to give them information, but I'm always taken aback, because in my mind, I have a pace that I'm trying to go at, and they always surpass the pace. So I'm like, okay, y'all got that. Okay, let me, sprint.
Okay, let me get some more. Let me get some more.
Exactly.
Let me get some more for the church.
Exactly.
That's beautiful.
So the first year we did Africa, the continent. And actually we started out with the world. So we taught the little bitty ones all of the continents, all of the bodies of water on the earth. And we taught them the difference between an ocean, a sea, lakes, rivers, shore, all the vocabulary that has to do with continents and bodies of water. And then the older ones, we got into natural resources. So coal, bauxite, aluminum, cobalt, all of those things that you can find in Africa. And then from there, we started with biomes. So we started going through the biomes of Africa. So grassland, tropical rainforest, subtropical rainforest, desert, and all the different types of biomes that were in Africa. So we finished that last year. And this year, I basically started teaching them the same curriculum that I teach my freshman college students. Now, this is 14 to 18-year-olds. And so I started with, what did I start with? I think I started with Australopithecus.
Wow.
So I started with Australopithecus, explaining to them, you know, the evolution of human beings from, was that 3.4 million years all the way up to Homo sapiens sapiens, Homo sapiens idaltu. And then we got into prehistorical Africa. So we talked about a couple of archaeological sites. One is called Gobero, which is in northern Niger. It's about 8,000 years old. And we were talking about, you know, the shifting of the sands and how you get these layers, how this burial ground was preserved, what the lifestyles of the people were based on the things that were found in the area. One of the things that's interesting about Gobero is that in the two different human beings that are found there, they don't have any evidence of war. So there aren't any like broken bones or combat injuries on the bodies that they found there, which is interesting, right? Very interesting. And then we talked about there is a mummy that was found in Libya. There's a documentary on YouTube. You can still find it. It's called Black Mummy of the Green Sahara. And it's about a little 3-year-old boy who was mummified in Libya around 6,000 years ago, which is 1,000 years before the oldest mummy in Egypt. So it's forcing archaeologists to rethink this idea that the Egyptians created mummification, and it's forcing them to focus on the idea that from the western coast of Africa all the way across to Egypt, that there was one related culture that existed there prior to what we know of as ancient Egypt that probably had this knowledge and information because of the petroglyphs and all this stuff that are very similar across the entire northern part of Africa. So we talked about all of that. And they were like, Auntie Labisi, so we are the elders. I was like, yes, you are the elders of, you know, you are the elders of humanity.
Of humanity.
You know, so what does that mean? What does that mean? How do you think that means Black people should be treated as the elders of humanity? And then their minds just started like
based on culture,
how
they view eldership.
Exactly. And they were
Yeah.
like, oh, wait a minute.
Yes.
You know, it started clicking in. It started really clicking in, and they started, you know, I started talking to them about capitalism, consumerism. What does it mean when you have a country like Nigeria where people don't make much money, but people are judged by whether they have an iPhone? And who's getting that money? Where does that money go when you buy the iPhone? They were like, to Europe. I was like, yes, yes, little brother. You know,
That's where it goes.
that's where the money goes.
That's where all the money
That's
goes.
where all the money goes. So then, you know, they start processing about, you know, they're the elders, and then they were like, one kid said to me, so they just came to our country to take our natural resources and kill us. I was like, well,
I mean, if that's the conclusion
Right.
you came to, you got a good brain.
right.
You know?
I mean, then they were like, well, then they wanted to know, well, why did the white people come here? How did they why am I talking to you in English? One kid was asking me, well, what did the first language sound like? Who was speaking it? Where did it go? You know, their brains just started, you know, processing things really, really, really quickly. And I was like, wow, there's a lot that I can actually do with them.
Yeah.
So this year we didn't do it. I wanted to focus on fundraising, but also building a more sustainable and long-term structure.
Right.
So I had,
Because it was almost like a pilot these last 2 years.
last 2 years were like a pilot.
Yeah.
And I kind of got my bearings, and I know kind of like what the challenges are, and you know how to function. And what I really want to do is create. What I'm working on is creating sets of workbooks that will have basically 6 to 8 weeks worth of lessons in them, so that I don't have to be on the ground doing all of the teaching or most of the teaching when I'm there. So if I can get these notebooks created by mid-year, my desire is to have the teachers get the workbooks, rather, have them read through them, basically go kind of through like a 2 to 3 month training with my teachers, and then I can just have them teach, and I can be there maybe for 2 weeks out of the program, and then I can start to float around from place to place, as opposed to having to spend 6 weeks in Nigeria myself. Because I'm ready to move to Sierra Leone.
Right. And so I need y'all, if you go on TiTiTalks.com under the donation section and you read it, it says that any donations that I get, any merchandise that people purchase, 10% is always going to go to a community-based organization. This conversation is telling you why they get some of that money.
Exactly.
You know, because we need to support these type of institutions, this kind of community-based, grassroots, thoughtful, historical, cultural institutions that are here for the children, and to bridge the gap between the children, because she's doing everything that she says she's doing with, planning and having everything there, but she's also planning some things locally here in the States too.
Right.
So talk a little bit about that.
So we are working these notebooks, or these workbooks that we're creating. The idea is to create our first version of Asha here next summer. So the goal is that we'll have basically a solid, like I said, minimum of 8 weeks of curriculum activities for the children to start here, because we have people in our community who have children, and it's always a struggle every year trying to figure out where you're going to send your kids for the summer when they're off for the summer. So I'm a firm believer in the Saturday school model. So we're aiming to do summer school first, and then maybe eventually move to an all year round Saturday school model. I've been approached by people in Oshogbo to move towards that model there as well, but I just don't have the resources at this point to do an all year round Saturday school model for the children. But the long-term vision really is to have these kind of pockets of children who have gone through our curriculum, and eventually to have those children network with each other, to interface with each other, and who knows what they're going to do. Like when you think about biblically, I think it was Moses, who, where he said God told him it was just his job to get the people to the valley, but he was never going to be able to live in the valley. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I feel. I don't think I'm going to experience what these children are going to do. I'm just supposed to create the pathway for them to do it, because I don't think I'm going to live long enough to see, what comes out of it. I just know that young people are going to do what young people do, which is things that you and I just can't imagine. And so I firmly believe that if we give them this grounding, and we provide this type of information, and we help them to understand that they're connected to each other and that they really can make a difference, who knows what the technology will be like 50 years from now, and what they'll be able to do with that. I mean, I think about myself, and I don't find myself to be somebody of, super great status, but I know some people in some places. Like I know some Grammy Award winners, and I know some, you know what I'm saying? So I'm thinking, if I have Ashalaye in Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Tallahassee, Ghana, where have you, that's what, 500 kids, 600 kids or more. Who knows who's going to be what in that group of children, and they will have a built-in network with each other from there. So who knows what they'll create from that point. We might be creating the next movers and shakers of Africa. We might be creating the next PanAfrican, leaders for the next generation. Who knows? I don't know what they're going to do.
They will be the ones who build Wakanda.
That's right. They might be the ones to build Wakanda.
They will build the Wakanda. But it all starts with planting the seed first.
Exactly.
And what's that saying? It's easier to build strong children than repair broken men.
Yeah. Yeah. And then too, like, I really love just the way that the children interact with each other. I was just telling my aunt and uncle at my family reunion over the weekend. We had a blind student last year. His name was Lekan.
I remember. Yeah.
So I was completely unprepared to have a child with any disabilities. We just didn't have the resources. But one of the elders in Oshogbo brought him to Ashalaye because he had not been in school for at least 5 to 6 years. He had been removed from school because he started to go blind, and his parents or his family or whoever never sent him back to school. So our classroom experience was the first classroom experience that he had had for like 5 or 6 years or whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have no idea how to teach a blind student. I don't know what to do. But we had only planned on hiring 8 teachers. But what I did was hire a 9th that was his full-time teacher. So what he did was just shadow him and be with him the whole time, explain things to him or what have you. So within the first week of school, after, I don't know when the last time he had seen a map of Africa, or if he had ever seen a map of Africa, I really don't know. But within the first week, this kid had memorized like 36 countries out of the 54
It's amazing.
countries in Africa in the first week. So what that let me know was, this is a situation where he just needs an opportunity.
Yeah.
And so what we decided to do was to pay his school fees. So now Dunia Fore pays his school fees at the Oshogbo School for the Blind. And when we told the rest of the children,
I need y'all to listen to what she just said. Dunia Fore just paid this child's school fees because Nigeria is different than in the States where public school is free for children.
Right.
Nigeria is one of those countries where children have to pay to go to school.
You have to pay school fees, right?
Dunia Fore just paid for this child to be able to go to a school that's specifically for his special needs.
Right.
So that he can do. I just needed people to really understand what was happening here.
Right.
Continue talking about this baby now.
So we paid for his school fees, and that it's not like here. So you got to buy his uniform.
Right.
We had to buy his typewriter, his Braille typewriter. We had to buy the media for him to be able to type in Braille on. We had to buy all of his school supplies.
Yeah.
We paid for all of that, and then we're now paying for his annual school fees. And so when we told the children that we were going to pay his school fees, they all stood up and cheered, and it was the most amazing thing that I was just stunned because they were so happy for him. Like they all went and hugged him, and they were lifting his arms up, and they probably shook the shit out of him. You know what I'm saying? Like
just the excitement.
They were so excited, and they were clapping for him, and it was just like a beautiful expression of communalism.
Yeah.
And that's something that I want to. They have it, but that's something in the places where we don't necessarily have it. It's something that I want to encourage among the other students, and the people who help me in Oshogbo, they send me pictures of him every year, and he's making progress. And people don't realize in other countries, Nigeria does not have a social welfare system, so there is no safety net. So people who are born with disabilities, whether those disabilities are their limbs or their eyes, or they can't hear or whatever, most of the time, unless these people come from very close-knit families where somebody's constantly going to be taking care of them, these are the people who fall through the cracks, and they end up being beggars on the street. And so we got him a cell phone so that he could call Muhyiddin. And Muhyiddin said, Lekan calls me every day. He was like, he calls me every day, and he prays for you every day.
I love it.
He says, God bless Auntie Labisi. I'm so thankful that I get to go to school because otherwise I would just be a beggar.
And Nzinga is Auntie Labisi.
I'm Auntie Labisi, right? I'm Auntie Labisi. So, it's very rewarding. It's extremely rewarding to work in a place where the children themselves, it's not like their parents are having to knock them upside the head and force them to come. Like, they be ready, like they just flood in every day. They're running, and they themselves see the value in it, and they enjoy it. I'm going to start posting the essays that they wrote last year because at the end of the year, I was like, write an essay and tell me what you learned, what you thought about your experience, what you liked, what you didn't like. And some of them wrote some really, really interesting essays. So I'm going to start posting those this year so people can kind of see, what they thought about the whole experience.
You should film a documentary.
We're going to.
Great.
We're going to. I've spoken with Sheun. So
yeah.
Sheun Kuti. I approached him when I first started raising funds for the whole thing, and he really loved the idea, and he helped me to do a fundraiser in Lagos in 2017 before the school started. So I'm
For
gonna
those who don't know, Seun Kuti is the son of Fela Kuti.
Fela Kuti, right? So I've already kind of dropped some hints in his ear. Hello, Seun. Don't forget what I said.
Come on, now.
Right. And I mean, he said he's open to doing it. He's just busy, you know.
Sure.
When you're a superstar.
When you're a star and all on tour.
You got stuff to do.
You got things
but
to do.
if I could just get over there when he's on his downtime and he's not on tour, I think we're going to make some of the things that we talked about happen with the documentary and maybe some music. So,
word.
Yeah.
Word. Let me be a part of it. Call me.
Right.
You know me. I'll show the fuck up.
Yes, we definitely going to need sound people. And,
I will show up. Because I'm just such a fan isn't the word I want to use. I'm really a supporter. I'm inspired by it. I'm excited about it. You know, a lot of my career and life work revolves around children.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited by it. And, you know, I tell people all the time, like, you don't have to be the one to do every damn thing.
Right.
What you need to do is do what you're supposed to do, and then other people that are doing other things
will fill in.
that align with your values, support the hell out of it.
Yeah.
This is why I have her on TiTi Talks. This is why I as much as I can, I'll try to.
She gives
money
every year, y'all. She gives money every year, and I'm trying to do it twice this year, just because I'm excited about the curriculum, being able to come here to the States, and I can just see what can happen when these children start coming there, because you know, back in the day we used to have like pen pals, right?
And, you know what I'm saying, stuff like that,
Yeah.
and a lot of the times the children they're disconnected.
Yes.
And the world is getting so much smaller now. And with technology, we really can be doing a lot more with that. And so we have an avenue here. And so if because I know y'all listening have been inspired. And y'all just want to, what they say the church house, you want to reach way down.
In your pocket.
In your pockets.
Right.
And if you want to support this work, Sister Nzinga, can you please tell them where they can find the organization on the internet, and also how they can donate?
Yes. So you can reach our organization online at www.dunia, that's DUNIA, Fore, which is F as in Frank, ORE.org. And we have a donate page, and there's also donate links on every one of our pages.
Hello. Any social media handles?
Dunia Fore.
Dunia Fore.
That's 2 words on Facebook. And then on Instagram, we're 1 word, Dunia Fore.
Dunia Fore.
And then what else? We also got we're registered in Cuba. Now.
Yes, I saw the video, the promo video for that.
Yeah, we're registered in Cuba now. So I hit kind of a bump in the road with our personnel and how I'm gonna function in Cuba. I'm gonna have to work that out. It might take a little bit longer than I originally planned, but I'm planning on doing some work in Cuba, and I'll be going to Sierra Leone next week, and I'll be registering in Sierra Leone. So my organization will be officially, legally functioning in United States, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and Cuba.
Y'all heard that? That's beautiful. Anything that you want to add or say? Any closing remarks?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just want our folks out there to know that, first of all, there aren't that many Black-owned nonprofit 501c3s that you can easily just put your hand on out there. Second of all, for the larger nonprofits, most of those organizations, if you do just a little bit of research on your own, you'll see that a very small percentage of your donations go directly towards the programming.
Yep.
Our organization is the exact opposite. So, I mean, I haven't done the exact numbers, but I know for a fact that probably 85 to 90% of your donation goes directly to it. Like, if you send me money, I'm ordering the computers on Amazon with that money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If you send me money, that's the money I'm using to buy the t-shirts for the children. If you send me money, that's the money I'm using to pay for their daily lunches.
Yeah.
You know,
she has to pay people to come cook these lunches.
Right. I have to pay people to come cook the lunches. I have to buy the oil. I have to buy the rice. I have to buy the tomatoes. I have to buy the onions. I got to buy the eggs. I got to buy the noodles. You know, none of these things are just happening by happenstance. So when you send money, that money is the vast majority of that money is going directly towards what I'm talking about I'm doing. I have not taken a salary. I don't take a salary.
Yeah.
I pay everybody else,
Right.
but I don't take a salary. Not because I don't feel like my time is worth it, but because I need the organization to get to the point where it can afford to pay me a salary.
Right.
And I feel like the work is more important at this point than me having a salary. So my 9 teachers get a salary. My assistant gets a salary. My community liaisons get salaries. I don't pay myself. I also most of the time pay my own ticket to go to Nigeria. My own expenses, they come out of my pocket. I'm not using the organizational money to pay for my expenses. There may be times where I'm like running short and I need to, pay for an extended stay if my flight got delayed and I have to stay overnight in Morocco because I can't get to the United States. And I got to pay $150 for a hotel, but outside of that, I'm not reaching into the organizational coffers to cover the vast majority of my expenses. So I know that that's something that a lot of people have questions about with nonprofits. Like, what is the margin whereby you're spending the money? The vast majority of the money goes directly towards our programming. If you send me $200 today, that's going to our FAMU student so she can go to Ghana.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm going to pull out my ATM card. I'm going to get on Cash App and I'm going to send her that money so that she can, afford to make this birthright trip.
Nice.
And that's really the way that I want to continue to run the organization. I definitely would, if anybody's out there who's great at grant writing, hit me up because we definitely need help. But I don't want to put myself in a position where if the federal government doesn't give me money, I can't function. And people talk about this. Black people talk about this. I'm going to get in y'all behind for a minute.
Yeah.
People talk about self-sufficiency all the time. And why can't we do blah, 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 blah? Why can't we do this on our own? This is what doing things on our own looks like. And if you are not going to be the people on the front line, then the least you can do is support the people who are on the front line.
Come on now.
Everybody was in they feelings about Nipsey Hussle.
Yeah.
Are you supporting your community, Nipsey Hussle? Are you supporting the person who is doing that work right now today? Or are you just crying over spilt milk? Because there are people who are willing to do the work. And we know not everybody's going to be able to get on a plane and fly all over the world like a crazy person and get malaria like I do. You know what I'm saying?
That's a real thing.
That's
people.
a real thing. I had malaria last year, child. My short-term memory was gone.
Baby.
People was asking me, did I eat? I was like, I don't remember.
Lord, today.
But if you're not one of those people who has the desire to be on the front line, because everybody doesn't.
They don't. Yeah.
And that's fine. Or if you don't have the time or you don't have the resources or the energy to be on the front line, support those of us who are. That's all it requires. It doesn't take my organization that much money. For example, Asha, for me to run it for a month, cost me about $8,000 in one location. What other organizations out there are running full programs for that amount of money?
With the community impact.
With the community impact and with the buy-in from the community.
Okay.
That's we had one of our elders, I didn't know he was sending the kids on the bus. You know what I'm saying? But because he felt like this is a worthwhile effort, I'm going to get a bus. And he was bringing about 50 kids.
Listen, truckloads of children showing up.
In a bus.
In a bus.
So, this is the thing is, I know what I can do with $8,000.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you got organizations out here who are raking in millions of dollars.
Pissing away
millions of dollars. But for $8,000, I can run a summer school for children for a month in Africa. It's not that much money. If we had 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people give $50, we set.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not that much money, and we have to start thinking about what we really value. Do we value the work that we say we want to see from other Black people, or are we just talking?
Hello?
It really does come down to that. And my thing is, people are always asking me, well, why don't you do this stuff here? Just like they was dealing with Oprah. Why ain't you make no school here? First of all, I can't do nothing for $8,000 in the United States.
Sure can't.
I can't get a building. I can't get licensed. I can't, you know what I'm saying? Like all the expenses that it would cost for me to run a summer program, I can't do that for $8,000 here. So what my organization does is we try to figure out where we can go and make the biggest impact for an economical amount of money. What can I do that's going to impact the most amount of people without costing everybody an arm and a leg? And if that's something that you feel like makes sense, then support us. It really doesn't cost that much money for us to do the things that we do. Eventually, I'm hoping, we'll get the attention of maybe somebody important who will be like, well, yeah, I really think this is worthwhile. And they'll sling us some G's, some stacks, and then we'll really be able to act crazy. Yeah. But until then, I'm perfectly content to work where I'm working. My 5-year plan is to just continue Ashalaye in Oshogbo, establish it in Sierra Leone and here, and then get my programming in Cuba off the ground. And I'm staying at that level until, bigger bucks start rolling in.
There you go. So all you people out there, make sure you share this content. People need to hear it. Make sure you're following Dunia Forte and following all the beautiful things that are happening with Ashalaye Academy. Dr. Nzinga, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Yes, y'all. I need y'all to get with the program. I need you to support. If you ain't got the money, I know you got $5 somewhere in your cash app.
That's right. We take $5 donations.
I know you got $10 somewhere in there. If you got 100, cool. If you got a 200, cool. I know somebody out there is feeling real frisky and got 500 on it. But I'm gonna let y'all be great.
Right.
Make sure you're supporting, and I'm being jokey and tongue in cheek just because that's my personality. But I'm partially serious too, because we have to start. I always tell people money is a prayer. Money is a prayer that where it goes is going to be successful, that it's going to bring you some type of value. That's really what money is. It's a way to exchange value. And we need to be a lot more intentional about where our money is going. So,
and it's tax write-off.
501c3.
That's right. Anything that you give to us is tax write-off.
Yeah, you can write this thing off, baby.
Write it off, baby.
All right. Y'all be great. I'ma holla at you. Peace. Thank you again, Dr. Nzinga, for coming through and gracing myself and my audience with your presence. We truly appreciate it. Y'all make sure you're following Dunia Forte on Facebook and Instagram. And make sure you donate. And if you have ever purchased any merchandise from me or made any donation, a portion of that goes to Dunia Forte. I'm just letting y'all know. We're keeping it circular up in here. We got to support each other. We all we got. Thank you for rocking with TiTi. Stay tuned for the next episode. Watch out for the new video content that I have coming out. And keep rocking with me. Peace.